Hey, can you hear me? Oh, great. Hey, guys. So the first thing, um, we are going to be talking about considerations and trade-offs and making decisions when building Web 2.5 apps. And okay, 1 second. So this talk is going to be mostly for product managers, founders, and less so for devs or analysts. So if you are mostly, like, there's two parts to this talk. So it's the technical part and the business part. And I try to combine them in a way that makes sense. And I try to simplify it as much as possible, but it can be also useful for some people who are missing the like one side or the other side. So if you think you can take something from the tech side or from the business side, please stay here. I think it's going to be useful for you. So what I want to start with is it is very important at this point of maturity of the industry. It is very important to know what you're doing exactly and have a realistic approach when designing and building the apps. So the first thing we're going to do is Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to outline the market overview and the scope of what we're going to talk about, because Web 2.5 apps don't apply to everything within blockchain. Of course, you need decentralization at some point. And we are going to talk about what do we really need from blockchain and at which exact parts of the application you might need to implement this technology. And we are going to talk about the trade-offs and considerations for people who want to build scalable, fast, and useful apps without caring too much about decentralization. I'm going to talk about why later. So the first thing is pretty simple. You have a technology and you have many ways to use it. As you have a combustion engine, you can build a Ferrari out of it. It's very fast, it's very efficient in some sort of sense, and then you can build a tank, which is very secure, and then a tank will be like a Bitcoin, and then a Ferrari will be some game or something like this. So we really need to know how to use this in the right way to not end up with something like that, which can be fun, but not really useful. And your competitors who built the Ferrari, they are going to be very much faster than you in everything, and in business world, it is not going to be working out that well. This is my favorite meme of all times. I really loved it since 2018, and it's still kind of relevant today. So when tech people, and especially blockchain people, they think about creating something, then create something without an end purpose, well, which is changing right now because people really care about products. And what turns out is this. So we have an actual product which is not really useful for the end user, but it's really cool. And I get it, it's really fun, but it doesn't solve actual problems. So the first thing we actually ask ourselves is, what is the problem you're solving, obviously, and how do I use the blockchain to solve it? And that would obviously depend on the industry sector. So let's look at the blockchain industry as a whole. So we have, this is how the newbie looks at the industry. And you have different blocks and sub-segments of the industry. You have layer ones and twos, you have DeFi, and then you have NFTs and gaming. But actually, it's not like this exactly. It's more like this, because at one things, we really care about decentralization. In layer one, layer two, we really care to be decentralized. In DeFi, we really care to be decentralized. Why? Because we have regulatory capture, and we don't really want to be under the compliance of all of the AML, KYC laws, and all of this kind of stuff. So we want efficiency, and decentralization in this case actually gives us efficiency, but not in NFTs and gaming. So let's break it down a bit more, and then put it on the scale of on the previous slide. So we have the industry have fragmented since last 5 years, let's say, fragmented more and more into a lot of different categories. And these categories, they each one of them have a specific set of challenges that you need to go through. And if we put it on our very lovely chart, you can see that here is less decentralization, more decentralization, and you can kind of see the scope of what we're doing. we are going to talk about this part of the aisle. So this is where the Web 2.5 logic kind of makes sense. So yes, you might not need decentralization from blockchain, but what do you need? So the first thing I want to start with is we need a credible neutrality. So you need an environment where you can trust that each person holds a separate amount of value, and you can verify that. To do that, efficiently on scale, you don't really need to be permissionless, and you don't really need to be decentralized, especially when you're solving a separate set of problems. And this will actually give us a lot of interesting stuff, which is not related to decentralization per se, but it leverages blockchain in a way that will actually give you scale and efficiency. So what you really need is you need interoperability, which is the ability to use certain assets in a practical way in many different protocols and have many different use cases for the same asset. And this enables you to have new revenue sharing models, new monetization models, and in general, new ways to solve problems. So in this case, Web 2.5 is the middle ground where you use blockchain in certain features, but the core of your app is centralized. So one of the examples of problems that can be solved is what I call API import-export hell. And it's solved by a property of blockchain called interoperability. So I'm going to give you an example of what we do and how we solve this kind of problem. So we are doing a learning, gamified learning platform for incentivized learning. And when we have started building our app, we had a problem we wanted to solve. And we wanted our students to feel more motivated during their learning process. And to do that, we have come up with a system to assign the points to the people, and they can exchange these points to rewards in the shop. And we have created it 2 years ago. And when we were thinking about creating this system, the question came up like, how do we scale rewards? And we have a lot of different rewards we wanted to put in our shop. So, and we have thought about different ways. How do we actually get all of those rewards into our shop and don't spend too much time on dev and all of this kind of stuff? Oh. Could you fix it? Yeah, thank you. So without blockchain, here's what we would have. So without blockchain, you would need every single value provider that is providing the value to you, to write an API for you, which is a lot of dev time. And then you would need to connect to each one of those separately. And so like you want real things, real simple things. You want rewards from people. You want to get concert tickets for Taylor Swift. I don't know why I thought about Taylor Swift. You want to get nice Nike coupons. You want to get skins from games. You want to get maybe tokens as well. And without blockchain, this problem is very hard to solve because the amount of dev time you need is huge. You can also say, why don't we write an API for people to use? Well, that's certainly not feasible because everyone wants to own their values. And like, if you make people go to your centralized database, they would not want to do so because they want to own their items. And they want to also have other things to do with their items because they want control as well. So with blockchain, the whole system becomes much more feasible from a building standpoint. So like you have to connect to blockchain only once, and each of your partners have to connect to blockchain only once, and it's very easy to scale compared to the other proposition. So in here, in here, you would spend extra time on each partner. But with blockchain, you would only need to set up once your system, and then it's all said and done, and you can use it to scale for thousands of different partners and get thousands of different rewards from partners without extra dev costs. So for applications like this, let's assume we already decided that we need a blockchain somewhere. So how do we actually know where do we implement blockchain, at which exact stage? Because this would make a difference between making a Ferrari and a very nice other car. And if you don't do it this way, someone is going to do it this way, and is going to be faster and more better for the end user than you. So in many cases, full Web3 way or full Web2 way, especially in the industries I outlined earlier, is the least efficient ways. So you have you and your goal, and then you have a Web 2.0 way, which is like sometimes you need huge amounts of compliance, paperwork, and then you scale yourself in just the usual company way, like you hire people, you do HR and stuff, and then you scale just usual. And then there is a Web 3.0 way, which is like decentralized governance. You set up tokens, you try to boost your community to do something, and then you do like kind of everything in decentralized way. So both of these ways can be very cumbersome depending on the certain circumstances. And choosing a strategic combination of two can actually help you propel your way into your goal really fast. And Web 2.5 is kind of a balancing act between advantages and scalability provided by centralized services and advantages and other advantages provided by blockchain. And both of them are improved UX, improved speed, and blockchain can actually provide you under certain circumstances. And yeah, so we combine both of those. Yeah. So one of the things I hear from product people in Web3 is that they are making Web3 products. And in this case, in the case of Web 2.5 apps, like in that scope of the things I outlined, it's very important to keep your mindset at Web3 features, not products. And like people say, like we are Web3, but really no one is really Web3 in those areas. And there is obviously features. And what you have to ask is which part of your application benefits the most from decentralization, and how can blockchain enhance your user experience, or will it actually decrease it, because it may. And what are the most critical trade-offs? What do you care about the most in your business? So let's say, again, an example from my team. We have a fully centralized system that checks your learning. So we thought about creating some kind of peer-to-peer system that, like, and we have had many suggestions from people, like, why guys don't you do like peer-to-peer check-in system for your learning platform? Well, that's not very feasible because you need to do a lot of research to it, and it really doesn't propel you to your goal that much, which is incentivize users. So we left that centralized, which is very cheap and like very fast to build. And then you also have a fully decentralized part of it, which is when a user gets their rewards, they actually get it on their wallet. So at that point, it's in their wallet, and it's fully like Web 3.0, you can say. And there is a middle part, which is points. And you can actually be very flexible here. So you can make it fully centralized and migrate to be a bit more decentralized later. You can think about something like layer freeze with zero-fee environment or something among those lines to implement point system. And then, of course, you will have to consider what is the best UX for you, what are the costs, and other stuff. So let's look at some concrete trade-offs of like what can you think, what parts are, like what questions can you ask, and from different points of view as a founder or product manager, and what can you choose best for your product out of Web 2 and out of Web 3. Oh, 1 second. So, for example, there is a very big dynamic between like trust and transparency in this space. So you can go in many different ways, actually. So in full Web 2 way, you would go closed source. You would keep your secrets as a company, and like it will be your competitive edge because you'll be rolling out the products. No one is going to be able to copy it really fast because they will have to reverse engineer it, and that will give you a lot of edge early on. And there is also a Web 3 way, which is like very high transparency, increases your community building potential, gives you open source benefits, like can attract devs, for example. And in this case, you have to ask yourself a question: do I want to open up my secrets, or do I want to gain market share by, like, for example, going to hackathons or applying to open source grants, for example? And how much do I control my transparency? Do I open source everything and then I hype on it or something like this? Or and like, how do I keep my secrets and appeal to auditory and like make auditory trust me at the same time? So this is, and obviously the answers for these questions will be different depending on your business. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So in terms of, there is a second part, market entry and onboarding. Web 2.0 businesses do have a very broad appeal, and of course, like, you can onboard a lot more people, but the customer lifetime value is shorter usually in Web 2.0, and the attention span is shorter. And Web 3.0, well, we know that our users are very passionate, but it's a very niche market. But the lifetime value of the customer is much larger. So another cool thing about Web 0.3 compared to Web 0.2, in Web 0.2 you cannot really enter the market without an MVP. With Web 0.3 you can. But on the other side, on Web 2.0, the onboard is much more simplified. So, and then the choice is yours. Like, do you want to keep deep market penetration, or do you want like you to be as broad as possible? Do you want like very loyal users, or do you want, or you're fine with just the usual users? Another one is ownership and value capture, because these ones are going to be vastly different for Web 2 and Web 3 businesses. So for Web 3, it's mostly user-driven monetization. And to set up Web 3 systems, it's much more costly in short term. So like, you need specialized dev talents, you need people who know Solidity or Rust or something like this, and they're like much more costly for you. But again, there is longer lifetime value. And for Web 2.0, you can capture the value much more easily, but then it's a shorter lifetime value of the customer, and then it's more cost-effective short-term. And then you would have to choose, do I want to build now and gain the market share now, or do I want to build on the longer scale? So another one, this one is pretty obvious. Do you have access to dev talent? If you don't have specialized devs who are specialized in Rust or Solidity, or you don't have budgets for them, as simple as that, you cannot really go to Web 2.0 way. But they carry some advantages, as I said before. They have closed source. No need to show code and embarrass yourself if you're a Web 2.0 company. And in Web 1.3, you need specialized skills, but you can really win publicity in this way. And one of the most important ones, actually, is regulatory environment. And the great question here is, what will be more scalable, filling in thousands of papers or setting up a decentralized DAO or something like this? And it would be dependent on the concrete problem that you're having. Yeah, and of course, 2.0 way will be very suitable for people who don't require that much of licensing. And Web 3.0 way is going to be better for heavily regulated industries like DeFi and stuff. So another one, I guess the last one, is risk management. In Web 3.0, we kind of distribute risk with tokens and NFTs as well. And the financial risks are transferred to users, but the reputational risks remain with you as a founder. And in Web 2.0, the risk is more concentrated, so you get equity, you have your own monetary risks. Of course, you can raise from VCs, but that's a bit of a different game. So, and the questions here is, do I want myself and the team to have a larger skin in the game, or do I want the other users, my community, to be deeply involved into the product? Oh, there's one more? Okay. So the innovation in Web 2.0 way will be internally driven because you have closed source systems. And in Web 3.0, you would have open source systems where users have a lot more impact and you have much more robust feedback loops, at least if you arrange them correctly. The questions you can ask here is, do users know what they want, or do you know better? Sometimes it might be the either way. Sometimes you might test the hypothesis on real users, but Steve Jobs would say, like, I know. And then, yeah. And here is the table for all of the considerations I've outlined before. I don't think I have time to go through this again. And there is like some additional questions I've asked here. Yeah. So Web 2.5, to outline in conclusion, is about approaching the market from the most realistic perspective possible. And I would wish you happy building.
Do we have any questions to the audience? Yes. No. Can we get an applause for Nicola, who's a volunteer who has been running up and down so you can ask questions? Like, yes, please.
Just a clarification. You mentioned that in Web 2 you don't necessarily need an MVP, and Web 3 you do.
No, the other way.
The other way around.
Yeah. So you can raise with tokens, like basically. Even with white paper, it's super like easy way right now. Like even right now, it's harder, of course, than before. But you can still raise. Like if you have a great idea, you can leverage token. Yeah.
Okay, I understand now what you meant. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I have a question related to security. I'm here.
Oh,
yeah. So, how do you see the difference in the approach to security in Web 2 and Web 3?
So the system is as secure as its least secure component, right? And then, of course, like if you have a hybrid system, which is something like this, you would have centralized components which work in the usual Web 2.0 way, and they're hackable. And Web 3.0 systems are hackable, but they're hackable in a different way. Depending on the implementation, it will increase your risk area, but also depending on implementation, they can severely limit it. So I would say, the approach to security is always like a combination of approaches, right? Like you set up systems, monitoring systems, like just the usual, like you do testing, you do audits and stuff. So like that will be very similar to how you do it in Web 2, I would say, because like you have closed source systems, which people like they're less hackable, but like of course the approach will be like very different. And then there will be like fully open source systems. It would depend how you use it precisely, case to case. Yeah, but they do combine those two, and it can lead to some additional security questioning. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to add, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So, like in Web 3, the approach is quite proactive. Like you do a lot of audits, just because, mainly because it's all open, right? Mm-hmm. In Web 2, as you mentioned, mainly, like most of the cases are the application, the software is closed.
Yeah.
Closed source. So the approach is that we don't need to focus that much on security because we can fix very fast, which is not easy in Web 3. We are closed source, so we cannot read our code very easily. Yes. And I'm a bit afraid that if there is Web 2 and a half, like Web 2.5, the approach to security is going to be taken from Web 2.
It depends on which parts of the stack you open source. So you might choose not to open source anything in some cases, and then you will be having a usual Web 2.0 stack. There is a joke I remembered. Someone said you shouldn't worry about hacks in Web 2.0 because it's illegal. And well, it kind of shows the point, but of course you should worry about it.
We've got code is law in Web3, right?
Yeah, I know. But this is like fun and games, right? So like what we talk about here is like play to earn or like gaming or some of the parts, like some of the parts of DeFi can be centralized, right? But there will be like in DeFi you would have to really think about trade-offs and like really like go deep into the technology stack. For something like gaming, it will be more problem solution type of thinking, and like you'll be like super fine with closed source and even with hacking, because you will be able to just revert everything apart from like the critical parts of like NFTs or something like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And we have time for one more quick question. Do we have it? That was half hand raised. I was like, sus. Just kidding. With that being said, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much, and give one more round of applause.